Last year, before Avengers Infinity War, I reviewed almost every single MCU film from Iron Man to Doctor Strange. There was one MCU film that I gave a rewatch to last year. My opinion on that film has changed over time, and I felt like doing a re-review on it before Endgame. And I did a review of this movie back when it came out, and I thought it was a review. And so I thought this would be my chance to do a re-review slash updated thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.2. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the 15th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Again, like the first movie, directed by James Gunn. It stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Michael Rooker, and Kurt Russell. The plot this time is the Guardians of the Galaxy are back saving the galaxy, but this time they have their own personal problems to deal with. In particular, Star-Lord, again played by Chris Pratt, who meets his biological father, Ego, played by Kurt Russell, and he discovers more about his family and his past. Now, I love the first Guardians of the Galaxy so much. It is one of my top 10 favorite MCU films. It was hilarious, super entertaining, with a great cast, love their banter. I've been really wanting to see those characters back in a sequel, and I've been excited for the sequel for so long. When the trailers for this movie came out, I remember just being so excited to see these characters back since I loved them in the first movie so much. James Gunn back directing the sequel, was still excited, and I remember this being in like my top 3 most anticipated movies of 2017, right behind Star Wars The Last Jedi and Dunkirk. When I first saw this movie in theaters in 2017, I remember enjoying it. I remember I had a good time with this movie. I was happy to see these characters back. It was still an entertaining movie, but I liked the first film more, and I did have problems with this sequel, and I remember giving it a 4 stars out of 5 when it first came out. But in 2018, when the news that James Gunn was fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 over offensive tweets that were 10 years old, and I was upset about that. Recently, I heard that he's back for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Thank you. And right around that time when he was fired, I decided to give this film a rewatch and been thinking about rewatching it. Maybe my opinions would change, and I was still upset about James Gunn firing at the time. At that moment when I rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, my thoughts on that movie just went up. I just started to like it even more and more. More things I appreciated about it, and I started to love this movie, and I love this movie, and I think it's a great sequel. In my opinion, the most underrated film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe films. I think it's just as good as the first movie, if not better. First, everyone in the cast is terrific. While Chris Pratt is still funny and likable and charismatic as Star-Lord, he gave more to this character, more emotion in this character, and even showed some acting talent as this character, and I thought Chris Pratt still did a great job as Star-Lord. Zoe Saldana continues to be great as Gamora, and I love the sibling relationship between her and Nebula gets a lot more to do in this movie, since they have a very troubled relationship with Thanos as their father and being raised. I thought it was handled very well. While Dave Bautista as Drax doesn't do a lot in this movie, I thought he still had some of the funniest lines in this movie, and is just so likable in this role. And I also liked his back and forth between him and Mantis, and I thought it was very funny. Mantis was a new character I liked too. She was funny, and I liked her powers. I liked her. What else can I say about Baby Groot? He's adorable. I love him. I love his dance scene at the beginning to Mr. Blue Sky. I was really happy when I heard that was going to be in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 soundtrack. That is one of my favorite songs of all time. Really happy when I heard that song. Once again, Bradley Cooper is once again really great as Rocket Raccoon and still really funny. And he was my favorite character in the first movie. In this film, he was my second favorite character. But my favorite character in this movie was surprisingly Michael Rooker as Yondu. I thought he stole the show in this movie. He was a fun and entertaining character in the first movie, but in this film, he got a lot more to do in this movie. He has a lot more backstory, there's a lot more emotion behind his character, and you get to learn about the history between him and Star-Lord, and I really liked Yondu in this movie, and I thought he was awesome. Really liked Yondu in this movie. And also I loved his line, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all." Yondu, is awesome in this movie, and he was my favorite character in this movie. One improvement I can say over the first movie, this film has a much better villain. Now, easily the weakest part of the first movie was the villain Ronan. I just thought he was a pretty weak villain. But in this film, the villain is much better. Kurt Russell does a great job at playing Ego. I like how at first he starts off as a funny and likable character at first when we first meet him. But then in the middle of the film, when you discover what his plan is and you discover this guy might not be a good guy. Also get to learn one terrible thing he did to Peter Quill's mother, and I just thought it was a heartbreaking twist, and Kurt Russell did a great job as Ego. While I disagree with what his plan and what he's trying to do, I at least understood where he's coming from and why he's doing what he's doing. I think this is one of the best MCU villains, and this was a much better villain than Ronan. And the visual effects in this movie are fantastic. Particularly the look of Ego, the Living Planet. When we go there, this is much more colorful and vibrant film than the first movie. There are just so many amazing visuals in this movie. Great CGI work, along with some fun action scenes in this movie. There are not a lot of action scenes in this movie since this was more of a character-driven film. And I didn't mind the lack of action in this movie since I cared about the characters so much and really appreciated how they were developed so much. And this was such a heartfelt film, and I didn't mind the lack of action in this movie. And there was still some entertaining action. The Guardians were being chased by the Sovereign, and Drax was shooting at them. Die, spaceships! And I thought that was very entertaining. Also, the climax is pretty fun too. This is still a very funny movie. There are still plenty of moments where I'm laughing out loud, lines, banter between characters, and even some of the weaker jokes. Not all the jokes land, but even a weaker joke at least got a chuckle out of me, and I was still laughing. One funny scene I can think of when Yondu and Rocket are in a cage and they see Baby Groot, and Yondu asks Baby Groot to get his fin, and just going through many sayings, and even one big toe that he shows, just like, whoa. That scene was pretty funny. I thought that James Gunn did what a great sequel should do, continue the story very well and continue to develop the characters very well, both doing a great job with that while still being funny and entertaining. This is definitely one of the MCU's more heartfelt and emotional films. Some of the relationships between the characters I thought were very touching, especially the very touching ending in this movie that almost got me teary-eyed. It was such a really sad ending. Very heartfelt ending. This sequel had such good heart and drama and made me care about the character so much. And honestly, I like the soundtrack just as much as the first movie. It's still awesome. Many memorable songs on there. Southern Nights in the sequence where Rocket Raccoon is messing with the Ravagers. That song was used brilliantly, and that scene was very funny. The one take shot of Baby Groot dancing to Mr. Blue Sky in the opening credits. Love that scene. Great start to the movie. Come a little bit closer when Yondu, Rocket, and Baby Groot were attacking the Ravagers. That scene was awesome. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I love that scene. And this one sequence with the Sovereign and the songs like Wham, Bam, Shang-a-lang-a, la la la. That was such a catchy song, used brilliantly in this movie. That is one of the songs in the Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.2 soundtrack I've been listening to over and over. It was so catchy. Love that song. I really liked the soundtrack in this movie. Thought it was just as awesome as the first movie. Sadly, I do have some flaws with this movie. I will get to those right now. First, my least favorite characters in the film were the Sovereign, these gold-covered people. I honestly didn't really care for them that much whenever they showed up. I feel like they slowed the film down a bit. Didn't really care about their conflict with the Guardians, with Rocket stealing their batteries, which I didn't really care about them that much whenever they showed up. I just thought they were the most uninteresting parts of the movie. One final flaw, it can be predictable. There were a few times where I could see some things coming, like this is gonna happen and that. There were a few things that were predictable. But overall, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2 is a great sequel, and in my opinion, the most underrated film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While still being just as funny and entertaining as the first movie, but also being very heartfelt and character-driven this time. Great cast, amazing visuals, awesome soundtrack, funny comedy, good emotion. This is pretty much what a good sequel should be, and I am very happy that James Gunn is back as director for Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3. Yes! I was so happy when I heard that news. I cannot wait for Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3. So happy James Gunn is back as director. I couldn't imagine anyone else being the director for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 other than James Gunn. Well, Edgar Wright and Taika Waititi would have been awesome, but I'm really happy James Gunn is back. Honestly, I think I liked the first film a bit more since it felt like something fresh, different for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and had that surprise factor. While this sequel wasn't trying to capture the surprise factor of the first movie, this one was still great on its own, and really happy I gave this film a rewatch. This, in my opinion, was a great movie, one of my favorite MCU films. And so overall, I am going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 4.5 stars out of 5. I love this movie. It's such a great sequel. One of my favorite MCU films. I really like this movie, and I cannot wait for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I will be seeing Avengers Endgame Thursday night. I am so pumped. My most anticipated movie of 2019, and I will have my review, spoiler-free review of Avengers Endgame this Friday. Tune in for Friday for my review of Avengers Endgame. I'm so excited for it. I can't wait. So what do you guys think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Do you agree? Disagree with me? Let me know below. Make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new here. It really means a lot. I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.